Futurist Jim Carroll from the virtual broadcast studio with one of the series in my Ask a Futurist questions. What I'm doing is you can go to ask.jimcarroll.com, fire in your question, and once or twice a week I'm taking these questions on to talk about trends, talk about the future, talk about what comes next, and it's all happening right here in this virtual broadcast studio, which I have now been working on for over a year in the era of this global pandemic now. The series is actually proving to be quite interesting because it's helping me to put in perspective the reality of what is going on as people think about the future. And one of the questions that came in this week is a really good one. What trends are you watching? Here's the thing. I don't go for fads. If you're spending any time right now watching the news, you're seeing, a lot of stuff that is, I call it fad trends. So non-fungible tokens. This is the thing where you're seeing artwork that is selling for like $70 million and it's electronic and it's not real and values are going up. And, this is the type of craziness which goes on out there. I call these fad trends. Another very good example, Clubhouse. I haven't signed on to Clubhouse. Everybody's talking about it. You can't avoid Clubhouse. It seems to be one of those things that is the latest and greatest thing and people are flooding to it. But I don't know if it is a real trend or not. I'm reserving judgment on that. Just a month or two ago, we were talking about GameStop and meme investing, and now we're not talking about that. Look, I've been through it all. Back in the 70s, we had banana bikes, we had a lot of fads, we had pet rocks, we had, more fads than we can think of. So I think the very first thing I do when I'm thinking about trends, thinking about the future, thinking about what comes next, I don't fall for fads. I do real research, and a lot of thought goes into the trends that I'm watching, the trends that I'm considering, the trends that I'm working on for my client base. And I use a lot of very sophisticated research tools which help me to put in perspective the reality, what is going on, including a number of news clipping tools that feed me information on a daily basis on the trends I'm watching. So what I've done here is I'm describing a variety of trends that are not fad-based trends, but some of the real trends that I'm watching at this moment in time. One of these is, let's call it faster FOMO, which relates to everything that I was just talking about. Now, FOMO stands for fear of missing out. And this is what happens with trends. When everybody is talking about a trend, when everybody is focused on a trend, you feel like you are missing out and you want to become a part of that trend. And I think part of what is happening and why we're seeing these non-fungible tokens in Clubhouse and GameStop meme investing, all these things, is because people feel like they are missing out faster on the pace of trends which are happening around them. They want to be a part of it. They feel like they're missing out. And so we have a massive acceleration of FOMO. It's a very real trend, and I think this is only going to accelerate going forward. Let's move on to some of the other trends that I'm considering. I think the biggest trend which is happening right now, let's call it post-COVID medicine. And one of the most significant things unfolding around us right now as a result of the Pfizer Moderna vaccine is mRNA. What has happened with genetic-based medicine is absolutely staggering, because if you are studying where this trend takes us beyond the vaccine, it leads into a very significant transformation of the potential for treatment in healthcare. There are researchers who are talking about targeted mRNA pharmaceuticals for cancer, for other disease, for all kinds of human conditions. And what has happened here is a massive acceleration in the science of genetics, in the science of pharmacology, in the science of pharmacogenetics, and this has staggering implications as we go forward. So not only has society managed to come up with a vaccine within 1 year of declaration of the pandemic, but it puts us on a pathway in which there are staggering implications as a result of the science which has occurred in the last year. But it's not just the last year. This is a trend which has been unfolding for quite a number of years. You definitely want to watch this one. Another trend I'm watching with a lot of eager insight is what I might call the chief resilience officer, or the chief volatility officer, or the individual who will be in charge in the future for ensuring that an organization can stay focused on what it needs to do as the economy becomes far more volatile. What we have certainly learned in the last year is that we are subjected to a lot of surprise, a lot of very difficult trends that we have to manage, that we have to try to deal with. And the reality of this is that managing volatility, for example, in the context of supply chains, becomes absolutely critical. So I don't know if we'll actually see individuals given this title, but we do know that we will see individuals in organizations whose entire responsibility will be managing resilience, managing volatility, managing, the new challenges that we face in this very complex world. Watch that one. Trend, which I'm very excited about, digital twin technology. Certainly what we've witnessed through the last year is a lot of virtualization in the workplace, a lot of work with virtualized technologies, a lot of behavioral change where people are far more comfortable in working with new concepts. And what digital twin technology, it's sort of the next phase of virtualization, because what it lets us do is if we're planning for an operation, if we're constructing a building, if we're designing a manufacturing process, we can work with a virtual digital twin, which exactly mimics where we are trying to go in the physical world. This accelerates how we can work. It accelerates what we can do in terms of innovation. It accelerates what we can do in terms of the conceptual process of product design or pathways for the process that we might follow in the world of healthcare or manufacturing, anything else. Digital twin technology is an absolutely staggering trend to watch, and it has been accelerated because of everything we've been through during the last year. Here's one you really want to watch: space repurposing. Think about what has happened. People have left their offices. People have abandoned shopping malls. Warehouses have become all the rage. And what has happened is a realization that, if we go back to work, we get back to some sort of different economy, there's still a lot of excess space out there. And there is the emergence of an entire mindset. How do we repurpose that space? How do we align that space to the new reality of what is occurring as massive behavioral, structural business model change continues to unfold as a result of what we've been through with the pandemic? So watch space repurposing. This is an absolutely massive trend which impacts real estate, impacts the office space, impacts investment values, impacts just about everything. Trend which is really going to take off through the next several years in terms of venture capital, hospitals at home. Think about what has happened with telemedicine. We've all become used to a world in which we interact with our doctors, our medical professionals from afar. That has collided with the acceleration of the investment in bioconnectivity or medical devices for use at home by Silicon Valley and other investors. You bring these two trends together, and what we are witnessing is one that I've been talking about for years, and that is the virtualization of the hospital. What it is really leading us to is the arrival of huge numbers of new technologies, concepts, behavioral change, and process change that will let us bring the hospital into the home. This is a massive trend and is going to completely reshape everything we know about the future of healthcare. Watch for life cycle shrinkage. This is a really fascinating trend because you will remember from your university course the concept of the product life cycle. A product comes to market, it begins to sell, it begins to achieve great success, it eventually achieves market maturity, and then sales begin to drop off. And what I've been explaining to my consumer product companies for over 20 years, product life cycles are collapsing. We've had faster time to market. The life cycle of a product has shrunk dramatically, and organizations are having to reinvent faster than ever before. So the situation for Apple, in which 60% of its revenue comes from products that didn't exist 5 years ago. So that's a very real trend. Collapsing product life cycles. But what has happened as a result of the pandemic is organizations have realized they've got too many products. They've got too many products in their product line. And what they've been doing is they've been collapsing the number of products that they've been supporting. What is going to happen going forward is R&D is going to change. Companies are going to be more focused not on broadening their product pipeline, but narrowing it and being excellent at everything they do within a narrow product range. This huge implications in terms of what happens with supply chain, in terms of what happens with interactions with consumers, in terms of what happens with next generation products, because it changes everything. In terms of the design process, which was already being subjected to dramatic change as a result of collapsing product life cycles. Keep your eye on this one. A fascinating trend to think about, and I think this is going to unfold, work back, push back. If you've been working at home, you've come to like it. I've been working at home for well over 30 years, and I mean, it's a lifestyle thing. Now, Apple had a fascinating commercial that went out in the early days of the pandemic about people working at home and how quickly we had to assemble ourselves to participate in an executive video call with our team. I think what is happening here is, as we slowly get back to some type of different world, clearly not everybody's going to be rushing back to an office workplace. This is a trend that is going to take a long time to unfold because the path to our next economy is not very clear at all. But clearly, I think what's going to happen is a lot of people have discovered they like working at home. They like the lifestyle. They like the fact that they're not spending 3 hours a day in traffic. And I think we're going to witness a massive collision between what some organizations are desiring to do in terms of the future of the workplace and the reality of what people prefer to do in terms of the future of their workplace. This will have implications in terms of HR, in terms of recruiting, in terms of getting the right candidates for the positions that you need, massive HR implications and talent implications as we go forward. Work back, push back. Remember that phrase, because this is going to be a huge trend. The relationship economy. I think this is one which really has a lot of potential for innovation and disruption. You think about everything that has happened through the last year. People buying their groceries online. We've been doing everything online. E-commerce has accelerated, and retailers have had to accelerate what they've done in terms of curbside pickup and pick and pack and home delivery and everything. And what has happened here is they've developed a new electronic relationship with their customer base. The thing is, a lot of these early efforts were done on a shoestring. The thing is, a lot of these early efforts weren't done terribly well. The thing is, a lot of these efforts are currently still very much sort of hacked together. But smart organizations are already realizing that a lot of their consumer interaction might not necessarily go. Relationships are going to continue. And so what we should do is we should make sure if we're going to do this, we're doing it right. So they are investing huge sums of money in the next phase of this virtual online shopping world to make sure they do it right and to solidify that relationship with the consumer. Absolutely massive disruptive trend. And it's going to change the business dynamics in a lot of different industries throughout retail, because those who do it well will be those who really thrive and survive. Another trend, surplus surprise. This is kind of a fascinating one, and it came up in a conversation with a very good friend this morning, Warren Beach. We were talking about what happened in the early days of the pandemic. Everybody was rushing out to get gym equipment. Everybody was rushing out to get furniture. Everybody was rushing out to buy computers for their home. Everybody was rushing out to get what they needed to get through this very complex and surreal period of time. And if you think about gym equipment, if you think about what has happened here, a lot of people who have never exercised in their life rushed out to equip their home with home gyms. You couldn't buy a bicycle if you wanted to. There's a lot of surplus equipment out there. And what is going to happen now as we eventually get back to some weird new economy in the future, and we're really not quite sure what it's going to look like, there's going to be a lot of surplus gear out there. And I think what is going to happen is a lot of people are going to realize they're not using it. So just as you could not buy gym equipment 6 years ago, scoring kettlebells was like, a huge development in our reality. There's going to be a lot of surplus gym equipment coming to the market. These are the types of trends that I watch. These are the types of real trends, not hype trends, but the real trends, and it's just a grab bag. And that's what I'm addressing today in this series, Ask a Futurist. If you have your own question, visit the website, fire in your question, and I'll take it on. And what I've hit you with today are just a grab bag, a variety of different trends to show you how I think in terms of the support, advice, and guidance I'm providing to my global client base. It's clear that we are starting to enter a new phase in terms of what comes next. It's clear that we're starting to see a new path forward as vaccines roll out and as a sense of hope returns for a lot of people in terms of where we're going. I'm carefully watching the trends because it has massive implications on what organizations need to do to align their strategies to the acceleration of trends around them. And with that in mind, last week I released a video which puts in perspective your post-COVID reality. It puts in perspective the issues that you need to be thinking about, the trends that you need to be watching, the questions you need to be asking yourself from a strategy perspective. So I'm going to close off this particular video by playing this video, 5 minutes long. Give it a watch because it will truly challenge your thinking. That's it for now. Futurist Jim Carroll from the Virtual Broadcast Studio. The pandemic has changed everything, and future-oriented leadership is more important and critical than ever before. And history tells us that every global crisis shifts the axis of the future of our universe, and every crisis offers an opportunity to improve and innovate. Here are some facts about your future. 68% of organizations have said that the crisis has forced them to adapt and change their business model. 77% recognize the need for systemic change in their operations. 82% believe that a more challenging economy is in their future. And yet 47% of CFOs are not very comfortable committing to new investments in the next 6 to 12 months. Over 50% of senior executives said that speed, flexibility, and future adaptability were the key characteristics for success in going forward. Clearly, the future isn't what it used to be. But do you know what it is yet to become? I'm futurist Jim Carroll, and for over 25 years, I've been providing senior-level leadership insight to organizations around the world on how to become a future-ready organization. With clients such as NASA, Disney, Pfizer, Microsoft, Chrysler, the World Government Summit, Godiva, and Nestle, I have a proven track record of aligning organizations to a fast-moving future. And that future-oriented leadership insight is now more important than ever before. Consider the massive whipsaw and often contradictory systemic and transformative change that many organizations have had to align themselves to with the sudden arrival of the global pandemic, trends which now define your future. Companies worked feverishly to manage workforce and workplace safety issues at the same time that they were taking big, risky bets on a path for going forward in order to survive. Fast-moving events accelerated demands for changes to the economic system, while governments spent freely to try to manage their society throughout the crisis, leaving behind a massive burden of future debt. Companies accelerated their investment in robotics and AI at the same time that they were considering trimming their workforce. And leading-edge technologies that we had talked about for years, such as virtual reality, augmented reality, bionic tracking, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, and so much more, suddenly moved to the forefront of implementation, driven by a sudden necessity. People move their daily interactions online while accelerating the pace of expectations for customer service excellence, delivery logistics, and instant response, while highlighting the inability of many organizations to deliver the same. We saw the acceleration of new technologies while highlighting the increased security and other risks that come from an interconnected society. Companies accelerated their spending to ensure their corporate survival at the same time that many CEOs expressed concerns about their ability to weather the next downturn. Companies simplified their product lines to more logical and manageable strategies at the same time that they had to massively accelerate product and service innovation. In the midst of all this, society saw a massive acceleration in the essence of pure science and fast healthcare and medical innovation. At the same time, the vast numbers of people decided to skew to a reality based upon far-fetched conspiracy theories. Leaders focused on a sudden requirement for agility and flexibility in which speed mattered, at the same time that they were working hard to ensure they had a pathway for organizational survival in place. Supply chains were stretched, damaged, broken, and reinvented, highlighting the requirement to move organizational resilience to the front of the strategy agenda. Business models shifted faster, often in unexpected directions, resulting in fast new challenges and opportunities, unexpected resource demands, and a requirement for new skills that had previously not been available. And in fact, the relevance of existing business models as a future strategy was put into stark reality at the same time that operational preparedness for the future was put to the challenge. The thing is, the acceleration of all these divergent trends defines your future, and it's your ability to interpret, plan for, and align to what comes next that will define your success. What lessons have you learned? Have you considered how your future has shifted, changed, and transformed? And more important, what are you going to do about it? Here's the thing. History has taught us that it is those organizations that focus on the future and align to the reality of what comes next who become breakthrough performers. In fact, in a study, 10% of organizations became the breakthrough performers of the future because they specifically decided in a time of uncertainty, right now was the time to align to fast-paced future trends. In that context, what's your plan? What's your insight into what comes next and what are you going to do about it? That's the type of highly customized, relevant, future-oriented insight that I'm providing from my virtual broadcast studio, equipping you with the future-oriented leadership capabilities you need to keep moving forward in a world in which volatility is the new normal. Are you a future-ready organization? Come and visit me online. We'll have a discussion about what you need to do to align to a world in which increasingly the future belongs to those who are faster. Visit me in my virtual broadcast studio and then reach out and contact me, virtual.jimcarroll.com. I'm futurist Jim Carroll.